Hey guys, it's the WalterFootball.com After Dark Show for October 9, 2024. We're going to be doing our Week 6 NFL picks against the spread. Before we introduce our co-host for tonight, please hit like, subscribe, comment below, share this video. Visit the link in the description for the merch store. As you can see here on the screen, if it loads, maybe this is the negative impact of having a million tabs open. You can see here you can get a bunch of t-shirts here in the merch store. I am, of course, wearing one of them, as I usually do, because that's my entire wardrobe. It looks like they have a 20% sale now, so you can get these shirts from $17 to $19, which usually it's like $21 to $23. So you can get them at a discount now. So make sure you take care of that. Take advantage of that if you want to help support the show. Also, please consider super chats, super stickers. That really funds us here, because YouTube ads paid absolutely nothing. So Sue and John Sanders have been so great with the contributions. Before that, Can't Make an Eagle, Andrew Z, Stuart Griffin, and then before that, Jerm the Genanon, Kevin Kovac. You guys have been so awesome helping us out here, and it really keeps the show going. Can't stress that enough. Also, you can go to Amazon, buy my 3 books. My most recent book is Jerks of the College Years, where I made fun of weird people I met at Penn State. I went to Penn State for 6 years, so as you can see, I ran into a lot of strange people. And then how the 2020 MVP was stolen. This is about Aaron Rodgers' 2020 MVP award and how Brett Favre tried to sabotage it. It's the expose I wrote here. So all that would help us out a lot. And joined once again by Evan Daniel. Evan, how's it going? How's your week 5?
Good, Walt. Thanks for having me back. I guess 9-5 was good enough for a repeat invitation. So did okay last week. 3-2, of course, in the circa. Started out 3-0, started out hot, and really felt good about the Steelers and Saints to try to start the circa quarter at 5-0, and what wasn't meant to be. But thanks for having me back.
Yeah, I love having you on. Excited to do this week 6 show. It was just such bad luck, I feel like, this past week. It feels like we lost every 50-50 game. The Bills, they clawed back to tied at 20, and then Josh Allen got concussed. And I don't know. I mean, I guess that was the byproduct of the concussion, just bombing it from his 3-yard line so inaccurately. The Bengals decided to become a running team in overtime when Joe Burrow was throwing for 5 touchdowns and Chase Brown hadn't even crossed 50 rushing yards. So, of course, they lost. And then I had the Steelers as well. Now, I don't know if I wouldn't consider that a bad beat, but it was like a 50-50 game at that point, because obviously it went down to the wire and it was decided on the last play of the game. And the Cowboys scored a touchdown to Captain Tolbert to ruin our final game of the night. So so hopefully we can rebound. Well, you don't need to rebound. You had a nice week. Hopefully I can rebound with this week 6. And there are 3 games I love this week, and hopefully we're on the right side here. But let's begin with the Thursday night game. 49ers at the Seahawks. This line was it opened 3.5, then went down to 3, then it popped back up to 3.5. I have a couple rules for Thursday night, which is one of which is just take the better team as long as you think they're going to be focused, because the inferior team has such an issue preparing on short rest or short preparation time against the superior foe. And generally, the better team tends to win if they're focused. And I have to believe San Francisco's being focused here, because they're 2-3. They're coming off a loss. I know Seattle is too, but I always felt like Seattle was kind of a paper tiger at 3-0. You know, they barely beat the Patriots. They got Bo Nix in his first start. And then the Dolphins hung around with them in week 3. And then lo and behold, they lose by a couple touchdowns against the Lions. And then last week they lose to the Giants. So I'm not a believer in the Seattle team. I like San Francisco. I hate betting the 3.5. And I always say that you need a good reason to bet a minus 3.5 in the NFL, because 3.5 is the least likely line that covers. But I think that the Niners are just a lot better in Seattle, and they've owned Seattle recently, so it feels like that should continue. So I'm going to be in the Niners for a few units. Won't submit this for the card, of course, in the Super Contest or Circa, because you need to submit that early, unfortunately. But who do you like in this game?
Yeah, so I'm on the other side. As far as Circa is concerned, I'm kind of hovering 500 right now, 12-1, so certainly not where I want to be. And like you said, Thursday nights are not a game to play. But that's really, more than half the games are really coming down to that coin flip. Last week's Thursday night was the same thing. I was on the Bucs side. I felt like that was the right side throughout the game, and of course they didn't get the cover at the end. As far as this game is concerned, the Niners kind of own Seattle the last couple of years. The last 5 games they've played, they beat them by an average of 15 points a game. Hufanga's going to be out. Hufanga got hurt again last week. I was on the Giants last week because of the situation. Daniel Jones moved the ball at will, even without Neighbors. They ran the ball. The Giants ran the ball. Tyrone Tracy very well. That was surprising, but I'm going to throw that game out, given the situation and given the spot. Purdy's been really good. Purdy's going to move the ball. The Niners are not finishing drives. And this is becoming a theme now with Kyle Shanahan. We talked about last week his epidemic of kicking field goals. Once again, last week, he kicked a field goal again from the 2-yard line. You're not going to win games kicking field goals, 4th and goal at the 2. On the ensuing drive, they end up giving up the drive that led to a field goal attempt, which ended up getting blocked for a touchdown. But again, I'd rather pin the opponent back at the 2-yard line than kick a field goal, take 3, and kick off. And we've seen that now from a lot of coaches throughout the league, and Kyle Shanahan has been doing this now for a long time. He did it in the Super Bowl in overtime. He did it 2 weeks ago when the Niners blew the game against the Rams, and he did it last week. And as soon as that happens, you're just giving up points. Red zone offense for the Niners, they're number 30th. They're 30th right now across the league. They're converting red zone possessions 41% into touchdowns. That's really poor. That, for context, the average is about 55%, and they're significantly below that average. So they're not finishing drives. Their defense is not playing well. I expect Seattle to be able to move the ball. My power rating in this game makes the line under a field goal, so I would be on the Seattle side at 3.5 for sure. I would not play the game given that it's a Thursday, but I definitely lean towards Seattle. I don't have high hopes right now. I think the Niners are the better team, but they're not finishing drives, and their defense is not good enough right now to lay points on the road.
You're totally right about that. They're not finishing drives, but I do wonder when that's going to flip because they have so much offensive talent. Just feels like it's going to course correct. At least I think so. At some point this year, but I don't know. Maybe on a short week, maybe it won't, and maybe they need some extended rest, and potentially maybe it's week 7 that it course corrects. But we'll see. Matthias is asking who's the 49ers beat, Patriots and Jets, both dumpster fires. I wouldn't call the Jets a dumpster fire. Patriots for sure, but yeah, not the Jets. But no, I mean, just look at the talent. I think talent-wise, the Niners are better.
But if you think about it, last year, McCaffrey had about 20 touchdowns. That's the difference. Obviously, running backs, McCaffrey's amazing. He's one of the best football players I've ever seen. But he is the difference right now finishing these drives. They are just not finishing drives, and they're not trying to finish drives in a lot of instances inside the goal line, whether it's 4th and short in that long field goal range. They're attempting long field goals, or 4th and short, 4th and goal inside the 5-yard line. You have to take those opportunities. We've seen from a number of coaches. Last week, one of the biggest plays of the Washington game was a 4th and 3 where they went for it. You have to go for it. You can't just take 3 points and kick off. First of all, your defense is not good enough. And second of all, I'd rather pin a team back at the 2 or 3 yard line than take 3 points and kick off. And of course, if you do get maybe 50% of those opportunities throughout the game, they'll balance out in your favor to take 7 instead of 3. And until that changes, it's not going to change. I don't have confidence in this team laying points, especially on the road on a short week. That said, they do own Seattle. They've beaten them by, like I said, 15 on average, 5 straight games. They're kind of in a desperate need to win the game at 2 and 3. I just don't trust the coach or the defense.
Yeah, it's fair enough. This guy says, I'm from San Francisco, not trusting Kyle's coaching, close like the games you mentioned. And then Mike McDonald owned the Niners on Christmas when he was defensive coordinator for the Ravens. Well, he had a lot better talent with that Ravens team last year. That's what I would argue here with that point. Seattle's defense is just not very good. They can't stop the run at all. They made Tyrone Tracy look like next Gale Sayers or something less week. It was ridiculous.
And Goff didn't have any completion 2 weeks ago.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, 18 of 18. Yeah, you're right. So they can't stop anything. So, all right. The London game, our second of, I think, 5 9:30 a.m. games, not in a row, but 3 in a row here. Unfortunately, I was like a zombie by the second half here. Jaguars versus the Bears. So technically the Jaguars are the road team here, but this is their home away from home, so they're sort of the home team. So I wonder if they get any points for being at home or quote unquote home. I don't know how to quantify the Jaguars being in London because I have the same rule I have as for Thursday nights as I do for London games, like the superior team's going to win. Now, I thought that was the Jets against the Vikings. I was dead wrong. The Vikings look like a buzzsaw, at least I think so. But I think the Bears are the better team because of all 4 units, the Bears' defense is by far the superior unit in this game. The Jaguars defense is awful, especially against the pass. Jaguars offense looks good sometimes, but Trevor Lawrence is so inconsistent. I don't trust Doug Peterson at all. And Travis Etienne just sucks. They need to get the ball to Tank Bigsby more. So I like Chicago here, but I just don't know how to quantify the Jaguars' familiarity with London, because they know how to win there. They know how to play there. So it feels like that should be some sort of advantage here. So this is a pass for me completely. Do you have any strong feeling on this game?
Yeah, I'm again on the other side. I give them a point. I think at this point they definitely know how to travel. They won both of their games there last year. One of them was as an underdog to Buffalo. They were 5-point underdog to Buffalo, won outright last year. They've been good. They've been good in London last few years. Even when they were a bad team, they've always been good in London with the travel. And I said last week that the Jacksonville's 0-4. If they get a win last week, they kind of like rejuvenates their season. You could see them on the sidelines last week, a little bit more smiles, excited. And now Chicago and New England coming up in their familiar London, they could really turn their season around. Now, I don't think the Jags are a good team, and you made a comment that the Bears are a better team. I don't know that the Bears are a better team. I think these teams are kind of comparable. I was actually surprised, honestly, that Jacksonville's not favored, which has me leaning towards Jacksonville. Now, I generally, again, like I said last week, I stay away from the London game. Weird things happen. Usually a big lead early, somebody comes back, and before you know it, you're thinking, is this game going to go to overtime and cut into the 1:00 games, which almost happened last week again. Ultimately, for me, you said it, the Jaguars' secondary is really poor. Their rush defense is good. Their passing defense is horrible. But I don't know that Chicago could take advantage of that. And on the flip side, Trayvon Walker last week had a great game. He had 7 pressures, 3 sacks, including one before halftime that caused the fumble, strip sack that led to points. I like Jacksonville in this game. I think they've kind of not turned the season around, but this is their opportunity now to win back-to-back games or back-to-back-to-back games and come home and actually, contend for maybe a wild card until they fall apart later. But I like Jacksonville in this game.
So is getting any consideration for you for any contest card?
I highlighted it, and I never highlight the Thursday night or the Sunday morning games just because I don't like the travel spots for some of these teams. But Jacksonville, I mean, again, it's too early in the week to really think about, my top 5. I probably would not have this in my top 5, and I just don't like to play that road game. But last week I played Jacksonville over 6.5 wins. They won a game, and their line is still 6.5 wins. So I'm a little annoyed. I was hoping that it would go up a game or maybe juice the other way. But I'm going to ride out the next 2 weeks. I think Jacksonville now. Lawrence looked good last week. Lawrence previously was overthrowing everybody. Last week he had a couple of big plays. Granted, Indianapolis secondary not very good, but at least Lawrence connected to open receivers. Whereas prior to that, receivers open or not, he was just overthrowing everybody. So I like what I saw from them last week. I like them running the ball with Bigsby more than Etienne. And if Trayvon Walker and Josh Allen could play the way they did, I don't know that. I like Caleb Williams, but I don't know that I trust him now going to London on a business trip overseas, where it's more familiarity for Jacksonville there. So I like Jacksonville in this game. Probably not going to make the card, but I definitely highlighted it as a possibility.
Yeah, just looked up Jaguars in London. They're 5-5 against the spread in London, but they've covered. They won and covered their past 2 games. So maybe they're figuring out how to win there, especially that second game. I think that's going to be such a big advantage. I already looked at the advanced spread. I don't know if you saw it against the Patriots. It was what, like 5.5. So felt like low.
Yeah, I saw 4.5. I saw 4.5, 5.5. I made the line 6. I did my lines ready for next week.
Yeah,
so kind of right where I would think. Yeah, and that's assuming Drake May.
Yeah. We actually had that news today. Drake May is going to start. Well, we'll see if he has like an all-time bad debut. Maybe they'll make a change, but got to think it's going to be Drake May. Bears are flying out tomorrow. Good move. I assume that the earlier you get there, the better. But the Jaguars know what they're doing heading into London, or at least you would think they should. All right. So we have Washington, Baltimore next. I had an issue here trying to handicap this game. It feels like I don't like much here, but most of my favorite picks are toward the end of this card. So I don't know how focused Baltimore is going to be for this game, because on one hand, they're playing a 4-1 Redskin team with Jaden Daniels. Jaden Daniels, obviously rookie of the year right now, and he's even in MVP consideration. He's like 15-1, I think, from last time I saw. So it feels like Washington should be on Baltimore's radar, but the Ravens just had a huge win in Cincinnati, one of their biggest rivals, in overtime, and they're huge favorites now. I don't know how focused they're going to be for a non-conference foe coming off 3 wins in a row. So that was my issue here. Like, if the Ravens are not 100%, I think Washington could come in and steal this game. Just on the legs and arm on Jane Daniels. Like, he's been so great. But if the Ravens are super focused here, it feels like they should be able to run on Washington. Washington's run defense just not all that great. Washington's defense just not great in general. And the Redskins haven't really played anyone yet. I mean, they feast on, like, I mean, defense wise, like, they played against 4 bad defenses, and then the Browns, who are 16th right now. So, it's not like the Ravens are great defensively, but still, I feel like they could give Washington's defense a lot of problems. So, I'm leaning toward Washington still. I think this line's super high. And we had this conversation last week on, like, where to rank the Redskins, and I ranked them like 9th in my power rankings, and I decided it was a little too high, so I dropped them, and now I have them at 9th again. Suddenly, I just don't know where to put. I don't know where to put this team, because their defense confuses me so much, because it feels like their defense should be terrible, but the last 2 weeks their defense has shut down their opponents. So. This is confusing to me. I'm not going to come anywhere close to betting this game. Do you have a lean here?
I do.
Okay.
I said this to you last week. I'm going to say it to you again. I'm going to continue riding this Washington team.
Okay.
You did say it. They're the number 31 run defense, and Baltimore is the number 1 rushing offense. It's a very bad matchup on paper. And Washington defense hasn't been great, and that includes the game where they shut down Arizona, and includes the game where they shut down Cleveland. They're still ranked 31st against the run, and Baltimore number 1 rushing. Also, I don't have it in front of me, but I know we've talked about this in the past. Lamar against the NFC has some crazy ATS and straight up record.
It's like 20-1, I think. Yeah,
20-1. I mean, just insane. And a lot of those games, if you really look them up, they're blowout wins. And last year they were against good teams. They're not blowing out the bad teams. They're blowing out. Last year they blew out the Niners. They blew out the Lions. This year, of course, they blew out Buffalo. So they're not winning some of these games. I feel like when they play a close game, they end up losing some of these close games. They get into postseason play, they end up losing some of these close games, whether it's Kansas City or whomever they're playing in close games. But when they put their foot on the gas, they're winning by a margin. That being said, I love this Washington team. They're getting better and better every week. They seem to be playing with a vibe and an energy defensively, even though they're ranked low against the run. They're doing the job. Daniels is playing out of his mind every week, just better and better. I was very surprised that this line was 6.5. I would have made this line 4.5. As far as power ratings, and I think you mentioned last week you had them, you called them overrated. And I commented that I had them average. I had them 16th in the league, and you had them 9th. And I said, you're overrating this team.
Yep.
I now have them 11th. So I think I'm slowly but surely moving them into more respectability. But even at 11, if you think power ratings and how does Vegas make a line and where should the lines be, I have this team 2 points better than average team. And I still have Baltimore, for all their flaws, number 1. So even with Baltimore number 1, Washington 11, I don't get to 6.5 in this line. And the look-ahead line was 7. And Baltimore won, so they covered. They covered by 3. Yes, they came back. Yes, it was a fluky game. There were some weird things that happened, but they nothing should have changed in their power ratings. And Washington won. What did they win? They won by a lot. Washington 34-13. And this line went from 7 on the look-ahead to 6.5. That's not enough of an adjustment. So I'm going to ride Washington. I think this game is close. I don't think they're going to win. I'm playing with house money. I told you last week we're going to play over 8.5 wins. The line did go up to 9.5. I very quickly considered playing under 9.5, maybe catch a middle. But I'm going to wait because I do expect Washington to lose this week, but then bounce back and win next week. I think next week they're playing Carolina, if I'm not mistaken. Washington plays Carolina, and then Chicago at home. So two very winnable home games coming up. So I'll wait on my hedge on the Washington under. If they could steal this game and win a couple of games, that line gets to 10.5, then I'll play the under. But I like Washington. I'm going to ride this team. I'm going to ride the Magic, and I'm going to take my 6.5 and hope this game goes to overtime.
Yeah, maybe I'll join you on that. So I was wrong. I don't have Washington 9th. I had an 8th, and I have Baltimore 6th. So okay. I agree that this line is way off. I don't quite get it. Like my line that I made for this game is about 2.5. Ravens -2.5, and that's actually what the EPA numbers say it should be. It says it should be -2.5. No, it says -2. Sorry, it's -2 for both, not -2.5. So I don't know. Like I said, I don't fully trust my evaluation for Washington. It feels like I said this last week. It feels like their carriage could turn into a pumpkin at any point, and I wouldn't be shocked. But it's just given how bad the defense is. Nothing about Daniels. It's just the defense. But the defense has been great the past 2 weeks, albeit against some sketchy competition, but still. Anyway, we had some comments here I wanted to get to. If Jaguars lose both London games, as Doug can, I would be shocked if he's not. Depends. I mean, if they're like both super close games, maybe he survives. But if at least one of them's a blowout, I think he will be. It'd be funny if go ahead.
If they lose to New England, he's not coming back on the plane.
Yeah, they'll give him like a ticket for a boat ride or something. But yeah, he won't be on the plane. Let's see here. Washington here, Ravens are frauds. And then we have on the opposite, Ravens are going to blow out the Redskins, double-digit victory. Read the line, it tells you the story. So I thought when I saw the line, I thought the public would be slamming Washington, but it's not the case. It's like a 50-50 split, and the Sharps are on Washington, which is not surprised about that. I'm just surprised that the public is on Washington. But I guess people are expecting the, as Stanley says, Cinderella run will stop here today. I think that's what most people are thinking.
I could see this being a rout because Baltimore has the history of doing that, but Washington's 10-point favorite next week, or I think 9.5, 8.5. They're almost a double-digit favorite next week against Carolina. Mm-hmm. So the Cinderella story is not ending this week. If they lose this week and go to 4-2, great. They're 5-2 after they play Carolina next week, and then they're a 6-7-point favorite against Chicago. Maybe not. Maybe they're a 4.5, 5-point favorite against Chicago the following week. The run is not over. This team is for real. This team is good. And Daniels is good. Now, he's reckless and he can get hurt, and that will derail the season, but they don't have a difficult schedule. They have a lot of winnable games, which is why I played over 8.5 last week. Carolina, Chicago at home. Giants on the road is a winnable game. Pittsburgh at home, winnable game. They're always competitive against Philly, and they play them twice. Dallas at home, that's a winnable game. Tennessee for sure, a winnable game. Atlanta at home, that's a one-possession game because Atlanta, all they do is play one-possession games. There's a lot of winnable games on this schedule that this team could compete for the division. This team could certainly compete for a wild card. I see no reason why we would think, even if they get blown out, even if the game here is 34-13, why we would then change our minds that Washington, no, they're frauds and they're really the 22nd best team, not the 10th or 12th best team.
Yeah. So that's what I said last week against the Browns. Yeah, that was not correct. The Browns are terrible. We'll get to them in a second. Washington won't even win the division. Yeah, I mean, well, they're in the mix for it. Obviously, I think it's between them and the Eagles. Depends if the Eagles get on track here. They kind of struggled, but they did have the bye. So we'll get to that in a bit. Our next game is Cardinals at Packers. Line's 5. Packers -5. This is another game where I don't really have much of a lean, just because Jordan Love hasn't been 100% coming off the injury. But I think this was his original timeline. I think he was supposed to miss 5 weeks or so, and like he was supposed to come back this week as opposed to 2 weeks earlier because they rushed him back. I feel like kind of unnecessarily. So we'll see if he's better in this game. I think he could be, especially against his bad Arizona defense. But then again, the Rams defense was terrible too, and he kind of struggled in that game outside of the one pass to Tucker Kraft. But Green Bay's defense has been great. Xavier McKinney's been awesome, and I feel like Kyler Murray against like superior defenses just it's kind of like crumbles and doesn't do anything. Like he had a great game against the 49ers, but San Francisco defense has been pretty shaky with all the injuries they've had. Like Fred Warner played last week, but he wasn't 100%. Like you can see it. So I think I'm leaning toward the Packers here at -5, especially with Arizona coming off that big upset win Just don't know if they can maintain that success. But there's just so many other games I like, so I'm not going to touch this one. Do you like either side?
Yeah, once again, I like the underdog. I like Arizona. It's funny. Last week, I sent some of my picks. I sent a picture of my picks to my brothers, all big football fans. And one of my brothers commented, "That looks like a lot of favorites." And it's not like me to be on a lot of favorites. I'm generally more towards the underdog. By the way, favorites last week I think went 11-3. So it was more favorites last week, which was very unique week. This week I'm on a lot more underdogs. Back to the basics, and this is one of them. I don't really have a lot to add to what you said. I hate the spot. Arizona off a comeback divisional win is not a good place to play them. Yes, big edge Green Bay in the passing game. They're number 6 yards per play passing, whereas Arizona only 29th by yards per play. But I think Arizona's a live dog. And when I made this line, I'm still not super sold on Jordan Love. I have Green Bay at number 12. At 1.5 better than an average team. I have Arizona 19th, but only 2 points between the two teams. Adding in some home field and maybe the situation, I would have made this line 3.5. I think 5. I was actually a little surprised by seeing the 5. And I just think these 5-point favorites, if you ask me again to look at a survivor, which I'm out of, and of course I would have had Chicago last week, my preseason plan would have been great had I went along with it. You deviate from the plan and don't get to participate in that anymore. I wouldn't be comfortable taking Green Bay if I were in a survivor in this week. Arizona, to me, is certainly a live underdog. They can run around. Kyler can make plays. Connor runs the ball nicely. Green Bay is middle of the pack defending the run, and I think that's what they're going to look to do. So there's certainly backdoor potential in this game. And I certainly could see Arizona winning the game outright. So I like Arizona +5. It's definitely another one of the games that I'm certainly leaning towards having on the card.
Yes, so he's not joking about the Packers having a suspect kicker. Yeah, I actually made this. My projected numbers have Packers exactly at -5. So, although EPA says it should be -3.5, so that kind of agrees with you more. But yeah, I just don't really have a feel for this game. John asking if you like the underdog and the line is +2.5, is the better value to bet the spread or the money line? Or I'll toss in bet the alt spread -2.5 because sometimes you get great big that way. I think it's like a case by case basis. It's like how strongly you feel about the underdog. Like if you love the underdog, just bet the money line or the -2.5. If you like it but don't love it, I think +2.5 perhaps. But you have any thoughts on this?
Yeah, I mean, well, if a line is 2.5, first of all, don't bet it. Wait as close as you can to kickoff, because if you see a 3 pop somewhere, like last week, you could have gotten Cincinnati +3 for maybe an hour. There was a period of time during the week, maybe more than an hour, where you could have had Cincinnati +3. So if you see a line at 2.5 and you like it, just wait. You might get 3. If you don't get 3, you can always use it as a teaser. Play 8.5. +8.5 is a good number. And frankly, now I would play +2.5 instead of the money line, because I think money lines might be a little bit more constricted. You might be getting +10, +15, maybe +20 max on a +2.5. Maybe somebody could check that real quick what the money line payout is. But nowadays, with teams going for 2 a lot more, and 6 being kind of a key number with extra points, teams missing extra points, 2.5 has value. There's a lot of games that are decided by 1 or 2 points. So I'd rather have +2.5 if you're giving it to me than a money line. I'm just going to quickly pull up what the money line is just on FanDuel, because that's a book where a lot of people can play.
Yeah, I'm looking at a +2 is +117. The Jaguars are +117 this week.
Okay, so there's not. I'm seeing Jacksonville as +1.5, +10. I'm just looking for a 2.5 point.
I mean, a bookmaker has Jaguars at +117.
Okay. Surprisingly, I don't see any. Oh, here we go. This is next week. Seahawks Atlanta next week, October 20th, is a 2.5 point line right now, and it's +14. There's no value betting +14. Yeah. I'd rather take +2.5.
Yeah. Or what do you think about my -2.5 alt line idea?
Yeah, that's interesting. If you can find real value, if you think the team is going to win, and certainly if you think they're going to win, you probably are willing to let them win by more than that 2.5. If you're getting +70, but you'd have to get a real payout. I mean, again, if it's +140, it's not worth it.
Yeah. One other comment here. Andrew saying Washington Baltimore is a neutral site game. Kind of helps that line, that area. There are a lot of Commanders fans in the stands. Yeah, I mean, well, first of all, Baltimore's Baltimore Stadium is like the worst neighborhood like ever. But anyway, what were you
Baltimore
saying?
will they'll pack the crowd. You're not going to have that's not going to look like a Pittsburgh or a Dallas
Yeah.
or a team going to like Vegas or the Chargers. That's not a neutral site.
Yeah, Ravens fans are pretty devoted. I agree.
If that were in Washington, yes, for sure.
Yeah.
It would be more Baltimore in
Yes.
Washington.
Yes. All right. Good evening, Chris. How are you? So our next game, Texans at the Patriots. This line is Texans -7. So you actually called this one last week after our video was over because we were looking at the advanced spreads and you're like, oh, that looks like Drake May is going to play. And sure enough, the news came today that Drake May is going to start, which one of my favorite things is whenever there's a coach or quarterback change to back that team because like most of the players are going to go all out to prove that it wasn't their fault. So I would expect New England to be 100% focused here. I think this is their big game to kind of prove to everyone that it's not them, it's Jacoby Brissett. But I do think that Drake May is going to be an upgrade just because he can scramble a lot, and the Patriots offensive line is in shambles. So like having May's mobility is going to help a lot, I think. And Houston's defense hasn't been good this year. The 22nd in the NFL. The cornerbacks are horrible. Now I know New England doesn't really have the personnel to take advantage of that, but I do think that Patriots should be able to move the ball a little bit. And I don't think the Texans are going to be fully focused here. They're coming off a last-second win. They beat the Bills really in the last seconds with that long field goal by Kymie Fairbairn. And then next week they have the Packers. So it feels like they have bigger fish to fry. And I don't know, their locker room celebration is just like it feels like they almost won the Super. I don't want to say the Super Bowl, but like the division. They're 4-1. I don't know like what's the motivation here. I don't see them being 100% focused. I like the Patriots quite a bit. This is not like one of my favorite picks of the week, but I think it might make my card. So what are your thoughts on this?
Yeah, exactly that. Might make the card, probably borderline because I don't really love. I mean, maybe this is where I'm not, as good as some of the real professional players out there who are constantly playing these 7-point or these ugly underdogs. I mean, obviously their offensive line is trash. I don't like May that much. He definitely can move around a little bit, make some plays with his legs. But the bigger question or the bigger thing here is Houston doesn't win by margin. They haven't won by margin in a while. They play these close games, especially on the road. Nico Collins, if he's not in the game, they were not sharp when he was out of that game in the second half. Their play calling, Slowick's play calling, continues to be a big problem. Running in inopportune situations, running on second and long, continuing to put them behind the sticks. And Nico Collins has been that safety blanket on third down. If he's not there, I don't know where Stroud is going with the ball on 3rd and 8. That's a huge loss. And where New England really can change the game or slow this game down and make this kind of like a little bit more of a slugfest, low scoring, closer game. New England's number 9 yards per rush, and Houston is number 25. So they're not great defending the rush, and that's exactly what New England's going to want to do in this game: slow the game down, run the football, take the checkdowns, play Hunter Henry over the middle. And I could see this game. I hate to say it, but I could see New England winning the game outright for sure. I think this game is going to be close. And I think that +7 is a good number. And we said this immediately. With Brissett in the game, with Nico Collins as well, to me, this was a 10-point spread. That was before the Buffalo game happened. So when I saw 7, and like somebody knows something, and it was very clear that this was going to move to May. And by the way, when they announced May, a starting line hadn't changed. Like they knew that this was May. Someone in Vegas knew that this was going to be May last week. So sometimes the spread tells a story. No Collins, Drake May in. I like New England quite a bit, especially at 7.
You were all over that May thing. It was pretty impressive. I was like, wow, you haven't called it exactly.
We could have bet it at 10.
Yeah, Chris says, I hope all fans in London relentlessly boo the Patriots. Otherwise, I'm going to be very suspicious of the fan base over there. Brandon saying, after seeing the Texans did the Caleb Williams and Josh Allen, it's crazy for the Patriots to stick Drake May in there. I don't know if I agree with that. Josh Allen did not play well. Obviously, last week he was not 9 of 30, but how many passes did his receivers drop? Like, I think it was the first play of the game. What is it? Matt Collins dropped a long pass.
Yep.
Keon Coleman dropped the pass. They dropped. I can't even remember how many passes they dropped. So I don't think Josh Allen didn't play well. But I don't think it was all him. And then Caleb Williams was even worse against the Titans the week before he played Houston. So I don't know. I'm not. I don't really agree with this. I think Drake May could be fine, especially with this mobility. And like I said, Houston's defense is not that good. And John says Allen was concussed. He thought it was 2018. Yeah, with those. That's how he was playing. Like those long bombs from the 3-yard line. Like I was watching that. It didn't even occur to me that he was concussed then. I was like, what is he doing? This is so ridiculous. But I don't know. It was so frustrating. Evan Daniel gives me low-key Dexter vibes, and I kind of love it. Any thoughts on that?
Dexter vibes. That is a first for me.
Yeah, I don't know if you ever heard that, but Tank or Diggs or Hutchinson. Is that for fantasy? I mean, Diggs obviously. Tank Dell should be good this week if Nico Collins plays. But anyway, let's get to the next game. So we have a quarterback change here as well, but for different reasons. Derek Carr is going to be out for he said a couple of games because of the oblique injury. So it's either going to be Jake Haener or what's his face, the quarterback from Oklahoma,
Rattler.
Yeah, Spencer Rattler. So it's going to be one of them.
That it was leaning towards Rattler.
Yeah, I saw that too. So I like when so my rule for backup quarterbacks, as I've said all year, when a backup quarterback plays a mediocre or a poor defense, they generally cover at a high rate. It's like 60 or 65%. I can't remember right now, but they cover at a high rate just because the line adjusts way too much. However, if that backup quarterback plays against an elite defense, they generally cover like 30% of the time, 35% of the time. It's pretty brutal. So there's a huge dichotomy there. And we saw a big line move here because the Saints on the advanced spread, they were Saints were -2.5, and now the line has moved all the way to what was it, 3.5 now? Yeah, so it's a 6-point line move for a Derek Carr. It was like the epitome of mediocre quarterback. That's just way too much of an adjustment. Tampa's defense is not good. Like I think they're ranked 22nd in EPA. So it feels like with all the weapons the Saints have, you have Alvin Kamara, Chris Olave, Rashid Shaheed, Taysom Hill if he comes back this week. Like they have the weapons to move the ball in Tampa's defense, I think. And Tampa's offense, it's great and everything, but Marshawn Lattimore has done a great job with Mike Evans. The Saints' run defense, I think, should be able to handle the Bucs' run offense, which is not good. The only issue, I think, is Chris Godwin because the Saints are so bad against slot receivers. You just saw what Juju did. But I don't think that's going to be enough to cover this 3.5 spread. And like I said, you need a good reason to bet -3.5. I don't think this quarterback change is enough. So I like the Saints here. I would prefer Rattler. I don't think Haener's that good. But, yeah, what do you think about this one? I am considering this for the card, too.
So, quarterbacks first. I think you gave an interesting stat about backups playing, forget the defense, but backup quarterbacks could be one of 2 or 3 different things. You can have a veteran backup like a Joe Flacco type, right? Somebody who is previously a good quarterback in the league on the latter stages of his career and now more of a backup, backup role, but definitely a competent quarterback. Then you can have the Tyler Huntleys of the world, the guys who are journeymen who they've played Mason Rudolphs of the world. They can come in, give you a couple of snaps here and there. Then you have the rookies. I'm telling you, Spencer Rattler, not a good quarterback. Now, I watched this guy play in college at Oklahoma. I watched him play at South Carolina, and I said to myself years ago, I can't wait for this guy to get into the league and play. He's just not an NFL quarterback. He's a gunslinger. He'll make mistakes. I don't trust that the coaching staff can reel him in. And yeah, Carr has been a mediocre quarterback for his career. He's been playing very well, especially with the deep ball. So I do think there's a legitimate case to be made for this downgrade. And you're not necessarily going from a Saints that were favored by, let's say, 8.5 to 2.5, 6 points. You're going 2.5 to the other side of that. So when you flip from, -1 to +1, it's not necessarily a 2-point or a 3-point move, given that you're crossing the 0. So the move, yesterday when I saw -2.5, I thought, I should probably take this now. because this line is going to move even more. At 3.5, I agree with you. I probably don't want any part of it. But 2.5, I kind of lean towards the Bucs. Now, situationally, yes, their defense gave up 500 yards passing to Kirk Cousins, but they're off a blown game on Thursday Night Football. The Saints just played Monday night. Huge rest edge. We just saw that same rest edge in the Giants-Seahawks game. Now, again, we talked about the situation for Seattle playing a short week against the Niners, but the last week, the Giants had the extra rest. They played Thursday night, and Seattle, I think, was coming off of was it the Monday night game? What am I thinking of? The Giants had a significant rest advantage in that game.
Because they played the Cowboys on Thursday night, and then Seattle played the Lions on Monday night,
Seattle played the Lions on Monday night, right, okay, perfect. So you have the same rest edge here with Tampa Bay playing Thursday, Saints playing Monday. The blown game, which Tampa absolutely should have won. They botched the end of that game because that's what people do. That's what teams do when they play against the Falcons. They forget how to coach and manage the clock late. There was no excuse for them blowing that game the way they did. And I just don't trust the Saints right now with Rattler or Haener to take advantage of a poor secondary. So I don't like the line move up to 3.5. I think this probably is a closer game than that, but I wouldn't play this game either direction at this point.
So let me put this on the screen here. So I forgot about the rest edge. It's a good point. Although there's one other thing to consider, which I'll get to in a second. So let's go to Killer Sports and just plug in what you said about the rest edge that the Buccaneers have. So teams that play on Monday and their opponents play on Thursday, those teams are 18-27 against the spread. So 40%. So you definitely don't want to be on that side unless like you think there's like just a great edge or a great number or something. This is curious. The 32-13 on the over. I don't know what to make of that. Maybe it's just fluky, but that's kind of wild. Maybe just tired legs means they can't play defense. So that's something to consider there too. Just being reminded of that. Maybe this won't make my card. However, some people in the chat are bringing up a couple of things here. Brandon's saying Tampa is going to be distracted with the storm rolling through. Football doesn't seem important when they need to focus on keeping friends and family safe. Bucs will be distracted by the hurricane, which is going to be. I saw like the fourth biggest hurricane ever according to projections. So this is not like some like normal hurricane. Like this is going to be could be a disaster. Could just blow homes away. I hope it doesn't. But Matthias asking, what's the history of this? It's so hard to calculate this because some storms are way worse than others. So this could be brutal for Tampa and they could be distracted. So that's another thing in the Saints' favor. So you go.
No, I agree. I mean, it's a good point.
Yeah.
But it can work. It can kind of work both ways. They traveled today, so they left. They're already out on a business trip. But you're right. If they have friends and family and homes that are in the middle of a massive storm, certainly their minds will be elsewhere.
Yeah, for sure. So, yeah, kind of hard to handicap this one because there are things going in different directions. And so when you got Saints short week plus Broncos on Thursday. Generally, underdogs are fine in that situation. It's the favorites who struggle, but yeah, it's another thing, because given the short rest, it's weird scheduling gimmick here by the NFL. It feels like they should have this under control, but that doesn't make any sense because Seattle's in the same situation. Like you said, they were in the short week playing a team on more rest, and then they had the Thursday game coming up. So, that's
a great point to note for next week when we talk about Thursday next week. 3 games in 10 days for New Orleans.
Yeah, Seattle too. So I wonder how that's going to affect them. Let's see. The government created this hurricane by using weather manipulation. The next game. Let's go to the next game. Wow, that sucks, Brandon. Sorry to hear about that storm. It's terrible. I hope Kenny and Charlie are okay. Kenny and Charlie both live in Florida. Charlie in Tampa, Kenny in Orlando. Kenny said he's going to leave, so I don't know if Kenny's going to be available tomorrow. So he's going to be elsewhere. I think he might be like flying here actually or something. But so he told me whenever it's he said it's going to let me know if he could be available for the show. Yeah, let's get to the next game, which is Browns to the Eagles. So touched on this a little bit earlier, where the Browns are just so bad. First of all, their defense isn't nearly as good as it was last year. Their defense was first in EPA last year. It's 16th now. Myles Garrett's not healthy. He's not terrible or anything like that, but he's just not a dominant player like he can be, because according to him, he needs surgery on both feet. So it's a rough spot here for the Browns defense, and that's like the least of their problems, because their offensive line's in shambles. Deshaun Watson looks so lost. Like he keeps dropping his eyes when under pressure at all. He's not looking downfield, and he's like shot putting the ball. His shoulders so like busted. They shot putting the ball, and it takes him so long to unwind. He's just like getting strip sacked and just taking like bad sacks. Like this guy's terrible. I can't touch the Browns against a good team until he's benched. It has to be like Jameis Winston. Like if they announce Jameis Winston we're going to play in this game, I'd have some interest in the Browns. But still, even at this high line, I'm going to be on the Eagles. I like that they're coming off such a humiliating loss the last time they played. It was before their bye, so they've had 2 weeks to stew about that defeat. And it feels like they're going to get everyone back. Like A.J. Brown, probably the least likely to play, but I think that he will be on the field, as will Lane Johnson and Devontae Smith. So I like the Eagles here, but it sucks that we lost the line value, because the advanced spread was -6.5. Now it's up to 9. And it's like the first time I saw the spread, I'm like, I think I'm going to take the Browns. But then I thought about how bad Watson is, and I was like, yeah, I can't do it. I think this is like kind of sticker shock to me. But after thinking about it, I like the Eagles now. Where are you in this game?
Yeah, I won't waste your time going through how the statistics of how bad Cleveland's offense has been, including the only thing I'll say is the 1 for 13 on third down against Washington's defense. So we don't have to go through all those numbers. Obviously, the markets have crashed on Cleveland, and that line really jumped out as, wait a second, 8.5. The last time Philly won a game by more than 8 points was week 7 last year. So we're talking about a year of games. The last time that team fell into a win by more than 8 points. They couldn't, nothing since. I mean, obviously, a lot of those games were losses, the way they folded last season. One of the big themes when you think about bye weeks in general, I always look to teams that are on a bye, off a bye and a loss versus a bye and a win. Teams that go into a bye off a loss seem to me to become out much more focused. So I do expect, with all the health that the players that they're getting back healthy, they should bounce back. But to lay a price of 8.5 with a team that has not won a game by that margin in a year, it's hard for me to do. I couldn't take Cleveland with any amount of points. If you asked me to bet the game and pick a winner, or tease a game and pick a side, I wouldn't. There's no number that I would be comfortable playing Cleveland right now. But I'm not going to pick a game. This game is so far away from consideration that it's not even worth me thinking about it more. Teasers, none of that. I don't want any part of this game. I don't trust Philly's defense. And as bad as sometimes these teams tend to look, and the Browns are crashing into that area, at some point they win, or at some point they cover. You're going to make money in historically betting on teams like Carolina that they're somehow going to cover spreads. But this game, not like you said, until Jameis Winston is announced as a starter, I don't know if it's the owner forcing the coach to keep Watson in, or if it's the coach kind of like shoving it in his face. Like, you gave me this guy. This is what I'm doing to you. I'm going to continue to play him to show you how crazy of a move this was. But I don't want any part of this game.
I heard a theory that because they extended Stefanski, I heard the theory that the ownership was like, yeah, you stay on, but you keep going with Watson, because that's the only way it makes sense, because it feels like he should have been benched by now, long ago. But I also heard the stat. Now this Deshaun Watson's EPA through 5 games is the second worst for any Cleveland Browns quarterback in NFL history through 5 games. Do you know who the worst? Do you know who the worst is?
No.
It's Deshaun Watson from last year.
I heard somebody reading a list of all the quarterbacks that were better, and it was a real list. It was a real Hall of Fame list of quarterbacks. So also, this is Cleveland's 3rd straight game on the road.
Yeah,
that's another factor.
Yeah,
always look towards back-to-back or back-to-back road games. Bad spot for Cleveland, certainly a good spot for Philly. But I still made the line 7. I can't lay 8.5 with a team that hasn't shown me they can win a game by more than a touchdown in a year.
Yeah, completely agree. Let's see here. Chris says, "Tell Kenny he can come stay in my basement if he cooks and cleans." If he doesn't do a good job, off to the woods he goes. As I written this week. Give me the Browns. Watson gets quote unquote injured. Winston comes in. I don't know if they're going to bench Watson at this point. Like I feel like they're just not going to. Like they're just going to ride him out. I don't know. I just don't have any faith in the Browns coaching staff making a good decision. Burrow must be the guy for the Bills who called 3 pass plays from 3 with under 30 seconds left. Yeah, well, given how concussed Allen was, perhaps he thought his name was Burrow or something. That's yeah, or maybe they should call him Johnny Football. There's a good idea. I mean, his EPA is better than Deshaun Watson, so it has to be an upgrade, right? Yeah, so let's.
I like the comment about the fake injury though, because I could absolutely see that happening. All of a sudden, he's got a rib injury, he's got a shoulder injury, hurt his non-throwing arm, and now you know Jameis Winston comes into the game, and you fire up and you live bet Cleveland on the spot.
Yeah. As soon as that happens, I'm going to be on the Browns, or at least the next week if like Winston's announced as the starter, I will like the Browns a lot more. But we'll see. The last of the early games is Colts at the Titans. We don't know who's going to start quarterback for either team at this point because Anthony Richardson was limited all week in practice last week, and then he was downgraded to doubtful. And it feels like as long as Joe Flacco's going to play well, it almost seems like they're going to keep going with him because he's such a better fit for Shane Steichen's offense. But I could be wrong about that. For the Titans, Will Levis got hurt before the bye, and he's still dealing with that injury. So we might see Mason Rudolph, or we might see an injured Will Levis. So my thinking is here, like last week about the Colts, I said I'd rather have Flacco in there. This week I don't think it matters because Tennessee's linebacking core is pretty bad. So it seems like Richardson has a good matchup there as a runner. But Tennessee's secondary is also banged up with Chidobe Awuzie out. So that would lend itself to Flacco being better. So I could go either way for the Colts. I don't really care. But for the Titans, I would really want to have Rudolph and not Levis. Because first of all, Levis is a disaster. Just makes so many mistakes. And second, if Levis is going to play hurt, I'm automatically going to be in Indianapolis. I hate backing injured quarterbacks. And I think Rudolph's better anyway. So it's hard. Like I said, can't handicap this game right now without knowing who the quarterbacks are going to be, especially with Tennessee. So any thoughts on this one?
Yeah, I like the Colts either way. I agree with you. I like the Colts more if it's Levis. I like the Colts more if it's Flacco. But I don't really care if it's Flacco or Richardson. I think Richardson could make those big throws. He also might be more prone to the turnovers. Levis for sure is more prone to the turnovers. They lead the league in turnover margin at minus 1.8 turnovers per game for Tennessee. Tennessee's 1-3 against the spread. The Colts are 4-1 against the spread. The Colts beat them twice last year. I think obviously matchup-wise, the Tennessee offense is not going to take advantage of a bad Indy defense. And Tennessee's defense is, are they good? Do they just play poor teams? Do they just get away with playing teams like Chicago in week 1 or the Jets who can't find their way? So the Colts have been good. The Colts have been feisty. And I was very surprised. It's weird. My power ratings in the game make the line 1. But in my head, I thought that the line should have been higher. And you give me a pick'em spot. And not only that, we just talked about the Eagles in the previous game off of a bye and a loss. The Titans are off a bye and a win. And they seem to be like excited that they beat Miami. They finally get a win. They're 1-3 and they go into the bye excited. Not a fan of Tennessee. And I think the Colts are potentially could be a playoff contender. And this is the type of game they're going to win. They won both games last year against Tennessee. And Flacco, I like even more. But Richardson, I'm fine with. I think Levis is going to play from what I'm reading. But I don't like Mason Rudolph. I mean, that guy's not a winner. He might not make the same mistakes, but he's not moving the football. So I like the Colts in this game. I actually like the Colts in this game to win by margin.
Well, at least he's not going to throw underhanded passes backwards. That's like the one upgrade he is over Will Levis. So it says McDonald's $5 meal deal for Walt's dentist. So yeah, you don't know this bit. I've been talking about how my dentist is a great guy and everything like that, but he said something very strange to me recently at an appointment. He's like, "Oh, prices are so crazy. McDonald's cheeseburger is $12." I'm like, I'm like, "Aha, that's funny." He's like, "No, it's really $12." I'm like, I don't think that's true. I actually went into McDonald's just to buy a cheeseburger just to see how much it was. And then I said, I'd eat it like on air. I didn't eat it on air, but I ate it before it went on. It was only $2.69, so I don't know what he was talking about with the $12. But anyway, Stanley says something I don't agree with. I don't think Deshaun Watson's a bad quarterback. I just think he's not a good fit for Kevin Stefanski's system. I think he used to be great, but he's broken now. I think he's done. His shoulder is so bad. And just he seems to like lost the mental part of his game. Like I said, he drops his eyes. He doesn't look downfield when there's even like a semblance of pressure. He's just broken. So yeah, it just it sucks. I mean, whatever. It sucks to like lose a good quarterback in the NFL just because the league is so starved for talent at the position. And we have to endure this like terrible quarterbacking for however long they want to keep playing him. So yeah. Anyway. Titans couldn't contain running quarterback Willis versus Green Bay. Yeah, that's true. Yeah, I think the Titans linebackers are a big issue. And you asked if like the Titans defense is good. I think they were good, but they've suffered a lot of injuries, and so I don't know if they're that good anymore. That's what I would say about that. Where's Jacob? Jacob had to step away permanently for the show. Jacob used to be our Tuesday podcast co-host. All right, let's go to the late afternoon games. I believe there are 4 of them. The first one is Chargers at the Broncos. This line is Chargers -3. I actually thought we'd get a good deal on the Broncos because they are 3-2. They've won 3 in a row, but apparently the sports books disagree, and they made the Chargers -3, which I think might be about right. I don't really buy Denver. Like the metrics say Denver should be favored. But I don't really trust that because Denver caught 2 teams that were napping. Like the Buccaneers just beat the Lions. So they weren't focused. Plus the Bucs didn't have Vita. And then the Jets had to go overseas the next week, and they beat the Patriots on national TV. I don't think they were focused. And then last week the Raiders had like 10 injuries in that game. And so I feel like the Broncos 3-2, it's very misleading. I don't think they're that good. The defense is good, but like overall their offense is going to suck in this game. And the Chargers should get everyone back, or most of them. Like before the bye, Justin Herbert was hobbling. They were missing both tackles. They were missing Joey Bosa. They were missing Derwin James. James is automatically going to come back because he was suspended 1 game. But it feels like most of them should return. And if that's the case, I think the Chargers are the right play. But I just don't think there's any line value here. So just going to pass on this one. What are your thoughts on this game?
I hate the game because my numbers make the game pick 'em.
Okay.
And I can tell you that there are a couple of very prominent groups that are betting the Broncos in this game, which when I saw that, I was kind of surprised, but 3 might have a lot of value in 3. I kind of want to be on the Chargers if Walt and Slater play. If Walt and Slater don't play, I have no interest. If Walt and Slater do play, I want to be on the Chargers, but not at -3. Mm-hmm. So at -3, forget it. I mean, this is probably my lowest or one of my lower ranked games. I like the under, but the under is very low, 35.5. Neither of these teams are going to push the ball downfield. Both of these teams want to run the football. We know Denver can't throw the ball downfield, and Chargers don't want to throw the ball downfield. So it's going to be one of those back and forth field goal games, field position games, a lot of punting. And certainly somebody can win this game by a field goal. I wouldn't be surprised if it's one of those like 17-16, 16-14, 16-13 type of games. I would look towards the under, but I don't think there's any value in 35.5. 37.5, maybe. 35.5, that's a low number. The only thing I would look to play in this game, and there's no value in teasing a 3 to a 9, but if this line were like 2.5, maybe I'd have interest in Denver, but this is one of those games where I just don't really have an opinion, don't like the game, and wouldn't play it no matter what for contest perspective.
Yeah, we agree on that. I'm kind of surprised that you said that there were some people who were on Denver. I guess if maybe I don't know if they have inside info on the injuries, which like could give the Broncos an edge. But I guess there is value in 3. Like you said, you made this pick 'em. My personal spread. Let me pull this up. I had Broncos -1.5, and the EPA says it should be -2. But like I said, I don't trust those numbers because it feels like they've had some like misleading wins, whereas the Chargers have been banged up. So I don't know how much that factors in.
Remember the spot also, Chargers off a bye and a loss.
Yep.
And Denver's off an easy win. So the spot to me, the situation to me, favors the Chargers. This line is so weird to me. A 3-point road favorite that somebody knows something, and that just completely takes me off the game.
Yeah, me too. All right, let's get to the next one. I have a stronger take here. Steelers at the Ravens. The Steelers also -3 on the road. And this is where we get into the danger zone with Mike Tomlin, who's just great as an underdog. And he's fine as a short favorite. But once you get to -3 and above, he's just awful. Mike Tomlin is the 3-point road favorite. It has a 40% cover rate in his coaching tenure. Just like you don't want to play Steelers when they're big favorites. Or -3 is not a big, but still, like they have to win. For them to cover, they have to win by more than a field goal, which is like for an offense this bad, just it might be a tough ask. And I know the Raiders have had a lot of injuries, but they might be healthier this week. They were missing a bunch of guys last week, and Max Crosby played injured. He had his worst game of the year. But the fact that he played makes me wonder if he's going to be more effective this week. And then Pittsburgh is just like, yeah, they started 3-0, but they've been in a tailspin in the past couple games. They were getting blown out by the Colts before they had a late surge. And then last week, they lost at the last second, as I said, but they were outgained by Dallas by like 200 yards. Their offense was so brutal. And I think it really, like the loss of James Daniels just like has really impacted this offense. Like he got hurt against the Colts, and then he was obviously absent against the Cowboys, and their blocking was just so much worse. They can't run the ball. They can't pass protect. Justin Fields looks kind of lost right now. The defense didn't even play that well. Like the Steelers, despite having TJ Watt, they're 19th in pressure rate. It just shows you like how like no one else is getting pressure on the quarterback outside of Watt. And like Watt was just so gassed in the fourth quarter. He was on the sidelines for a long time. And like the Raiders are running with, or sorry, the Cowboys are running with Rico Doodle, as we call him on the show. I like the Raiders here to bounce back, but I've been on the Raiders way too often this year. Although I was on them against Baltimore, but I have liked them when I shouldn't have. So I do like them here. They might make the card. What are your thoughts on this game?
Well, these are the two teams that kind of burn me every single week, regardless of which way I go. I don't have a strong opinion. I will tell you that the Raiders this year, off of a loss, are 2-0 straight up and against the spread. They lose, they come back and they win. They lose again, they come back and they win. Now they lost, now the trend would tell you they're going to come back and win. Pittsburgh's off a loss, so that's usually a bounce back spot for Tomlin. They were very poor defensively last week, but the Cowboys, even with their flaws, especially in the red zone, the Cowboys are a better offense than the Raiders. Let's be fair. Minshew just tanked that game. It's almost like they quit after he threw that pick six that made, instead of 17-3, it's 10-10. And it's almost as if they quit after that. I think Pitt shuts them down offensively, but Pitt can't score. Fields was just miserable in the game. There is rumor that they're going to switch to Russell Wilson, who, frankly, I actually think is worse. We know Russell Wilson can't run at all, and that's a whole dynamic that Fields brings to the game that a lot of quarterbacks don't have. Certainly not Russell Wilson. He can't move. He's a statue, and he smells Crosby. He's going to go down. And I don't think he's a great passer. So he certainly didn't do well last year, and he wasn't good the year before that. I don't know that I make any upgrade at all. As a matter of fact, I'd probably downgrade Pittsburgh's offense with Russell Wilson. I could be wrong on that, but Fields has just been so bad. To me, if this line were 2.5, I'd immediately pick Pittsburgh. If the line were 3.5, I'd immediately pick the Raiders. I wouldn't give it much thought. I don't have a strong opinion on the Raiders bouncing back in this situation against. If you told me Pittsburgh won last week, absolutely. That's a classic letdown spot for Pittsburgh. They'd probably favored in this game by more, by 3.5, 4.5, if they had beaten Dallas, and that's an auto play on the Raiders. At 3 now, I just don't have a strong conviction on it. And like I said, the Raiders, both of these teams continue to burn me week in, week out. I can't get a pick right on this game, so maybe this game will end in a tie, and I'll get the underdog at +3.
I agree that Russell Wilson is the worst option, but if they go to him, I would not be as bullish on the Raiders just for this game. Like the following week, I'd be more anti-Steelers with Russell Wilson. I just think that the quarterback change would kind of fire up the team, and we'd see them at their best. Kind of like I said, whenever there's a coach or a quarterback change, we saw it week 3 when the Panthers went to Andy Dalton. Like they just were playing their best game. But I think the report I saw was that Russell Wilson is on track to be active this game. I didn't see anything about him replacing Fields. I could have read a different report than you guys did, but that's the one I saw. So I didn't like get any sense that he was going to play in this game. But I could be wrong. Maybe they'll make that change later in the week.
There's a question though. You might know the answer to this. There's a threshold for salary or picks or something. I think it's salary that if it might be picks that if Fields plays a certain amount of time or quarters or games, I'm not sure exactly what it is, that either there's a 4th round pick instead of a 6th round pick conditional that goes back to Chicago, or maybe there was a money factor that when I saw that in the preseason, it's like, no, they're for sure not going to play Fields strictly because of the pick or the money. There's something, if somebody wants to look up, there's a threshold by which if he gets a certain amount of time, something is triggered. So it could be that they want to give Wilson more time if they can.
Yeah, it's 51% of snaps this year. It goes from 6th to 4th.
Okay, so keep that in mind.
Yeah, that's a good point. I didn't consider that. So maybe they will make the move to Wilson. But Chris says maybe Raiders +9 for Walt's weekly teaser. No, if this is 2.5 to go to 8.5, then there would be value. But at +3, you just bet the +3. Because you tease to get the key numbers, and you already have the key number at +3. Kimiko says, sorry, came late. Are you taking the over rushing yards for Mason versus Seahawks on Thursday night? Well, generally you talk about props on the Saturday show. Well, this is a Thursday game, so I guess I'll talk about that now. No, we actually hit our same game parlay for in the Chiefs Saints game, which is nice. But Seattle's run defense is pretty bad. They just allowed Tyron Tracy to rush for 127 yards. It feels like a great matchup for Mason. I didn't look at what the prop was exactly, but this is something that might be in the same game parlay, which we do for every night game, just for fun. But we've hit 2 of them this year, so it's pretty good. Actually, we hit both of them, and both happened. Both of them were in the Chiefs home games, like the opener against the Ravens, and then Monday night against the Saints. So maybe we need to stick to the Chiefs home games for their same game parlay. And then Grits Bliss says Tomlin not good on the West Coast. I don't have numbers on that, but I don't know how I'd read into that. But I don't know. Generally, I feel like the Steelers would be favored on the road against those teams. The Raiders, the Chargers when they're bad. So Steelers' favorite's not very good.
It'll be a Steeler home crowd for sure.
That's absolutely true. All right, next game, Falcons at the Panthers. This line is 6 or 6.5, depending on where you look. This feels like such a big overreaction. The advanced spread was 3, and now we move to the advanced is 3.
3, you're right.
Yeah. So we moved to 6 or 6.5 based on what exactly? So we saw Atlanta beat the Buccaneers 36-30 on Thursday Night Football. Everyone saw that game because it's a standalone game. Kirk Cousins threw for 500 yards. So of course, how can Atlanta lose to Carolina if they have a quarterback throwing for 500 yards? And then on the other side, you have the Panthers losing to the Bears. Panthers scored early. They're up 7-0, and then they did nothing offensively after that. But Chicago's defense is, I think, 6th in EPA. So it's a very tough matchup. And so now, because of that, this line moves from 3 to 6 or 6.5. I just don't quite understand that. Atlanta lost in Carolina last year. Now, I know that it was Desmond Ridder and not Kirk Cousins, but Carolina's offense is better this year. They have better blocking, they have better receivers, and they have a better quarterback because Andy Dalton obviously better than Bryce Young. So I don't quite get the spread. And plus, Atlanta is coming off such a big win. It feels like they could just be distracted here. Just like a big win coming off a divisional rival like that. Just feels like they could take the Panthers lightly. Like why would they try hard against the Panthers? Next week they have Seattle. Seattle's not like a marquee opponent, but it's a winning team, and so it feels like Atlanta might look past Carolina. Whereas Carolina coming off of a loss, I think they'll be geared up to play Atlanta here. It's a divisional game. I think it'll be close. And in fact, it wouldn't surprise me if this is one of those upsets you see. Like last week, we saw San Francisco and Seattle both losing. It wouldn't shock me at all if Atlanta lost to Carolina. Atlanta's defense is 25th in the NFL. So as bad as Carolina's defense is, Atlanta's defense is not that much better. I love Carolina +6 or 6.5 here. Hopefully we get to 7. But who do you like here?
I agree with everything you said. I feel exactly the same way. I think Atlanta overlooks the game. It's too early in the season for Carolina to quit. Dalton, they kind of had that original boost when they changed quarterbacks. That's kind of waned off, and obviously the markets really crashed on Carolina last week. But my line in this game is still 3, maybe 3.5. When I saw 6, it's like, wait a second, what? And I have the Panthers rated the lowest in the league. They're number 32. To me, they're -7. But I don't have the Falcons above average. The Falcons are not an above average team. They're 2 of their wins are complete flukes. Last week was a fluky win. The Eagles win was a fluky win. If they're 1-4, are they favored by 6 on the road in a divisional game? Absolutely not. Right. So yeah, they're 3-2. They get a lucky win last week again. They come back because Tampa Bay mismanages the clock. They kind of exhale, and now they're playing a team that just got embarrassed again. So I don't see any reason why this wouldn't be a 1-possession game. Now, I know they also last year, even with Ritter, they won by margin in that first game. I think it was the first game of the season, divisional game on the road in Carolina. They won the game. I think it was 23-13. They won the game by 10 points. I think this game could be close. I think this game is going to be a field goal game because all Atlanta does is play field goal games, back and forth, 26-24, 24-23. The back door is for sure open in this game if they do take a 10-point lead. And I can absolutely see Carolina taking the lead early and having Atlanta coming back, maybe winning a game, but not covering. So I hate to say it because I keep losing with Carolina in contest play, although I didn't use them in Circle last week. I did use them in the Super Contest. But I'm probably back on here again at 6. And you're not going to get 7. I did see some 6.5s. I thought I saw a 6.5 recently. No, it's at 6. I did see it hit 6.5 and came back down.
Yeah, me too.
So I don't think it's going to 7.
Yeah,
but I'm very happy with 6.
Bookmaker has plus 6.5, -115. What it's worth. So yeah, you can pay a little bit more for the 6.5. I'd rather just play the 6. Yeah, so Helen, I keep saying Helen Hunt when I see this. Hen Hunt says Atlanta with extra rest, tight divisional and road game. Atlanta will take this win. Carolina defense is bad. Atlanta defense is bad too. Don't think Atlanta's defense is much better. They are 25th. They're pretty bad. They're not getting any pressure on the quarterback. Neither is Carolina. So we might see a shootout here. That says Kirk isn't his best in the late afternoon games. I love this because like the knock on Cousins was like he can't win in night games, and now he can only win in night games. So he's Captain Primetime, I suppose, but he can't win late afternoon games.
This game could be a shootout. What's the over-under in this game? 47.
It was, you said 47?
47.5.
Yeah, it feels like that should go over, just given how bad
I have this game in the 50s.
Yeah, that makes sense. All right, so yeah, glad we agree on this one. I like Carolina a lot. I liked Carolina last week, and then I got off of them because of all the injuries they had. I just didn't like that both linebackers were out. So hopefully Josie Jewell plays in this game. That would be a big boost for me. So anyway, we have the last of the late afternoon games. Lions at the Cowboys. I talked to you about this after our show last week, where I was like, not that I disagree with this line, but I was like, it's remarkable how things have changed so quickly because late last year, the Lions were out the Cowboys and the Cowboys were -4.5, and now Detroit's -3. I actually think this line's short. I made this, I believe I made this like -5, I think. Let me see. Yeah, I made this -5, and the EPA says this should be -4.5. This is how much I hate the Cowboys. I think the Cowboys are horrible. Outside of CeeDee Lamb, like they don't do anything well. Like except for last week for some reason. They don't run the ball well. They don't pass protect. They don't run block well. They have terrible coach. Well, not terrible coaching. They have bad coaching. They don't rush the passer without Parsons or Lawrence. They can't stop the run, and they have issues in the secondary, so they can't really cover. So, like, what does this team do well at all outside of throw to CeeDee Lamb? Now, the Lions struggle to cover slot receivers, so I think Lamb could have a good game, but that's it. Like, I really don't see Dallas doing much else here. They are 25th in net EPA. So like they are considered one of the worst teams in the NFL according to metrics, and that's with Parsons and Lawrence. Like those guys are not available here. And Detroit has a great offensive line. Detroit is better at every position, I think, except for you could argue quarterback, whatever. It's pretty close. And then receiver 1 is also close with Lamb and St. Brown. I'll give it to Lamb. Outside of that, every other position goes to Detroit here. Like Detroit is far superior to Dallas. And Detroit's coming off extra rest. I know they're coming off a win prior to the bye, but I think the extra rest could help them here. It's a big game because they lost to Dallas last year because of that stupid Dan Skipper rule thing. So Dallas will be on the radar, especially after Dallas won on national TV. So I already locked this in at Detroit -3. I was worried it could go to 3.5. So what are your thoughts here?
Yeah, I agree. The Detroit coming off the bye and the win is negated by the fact that it's a revenge spot from last year. So this game is certainly circled on the calendar. Every single matchup points to Detroit. They're going to be able to move the ball through the air very well. Obviously, Dallas ran the ball well last week, which we didn't expect against Pittsburgh. They're not going to run the ball well this week against Detroit's line. Also, PFF has Detroit number 2 in pass rush. Dallas cannot protect. They were moving guys around last week. Guys got injured on the line. Hutchinson has been a man possessed, so he's gonna have a huge game. If Dallas can't run the football and Dak is running for his life, even though they're at home, I agree Detroit is the right side here. I don't like when these lines move from 3 to 3.5, although that kind of tells you that the 3, that's the right side to be on. Another big factor in this game we saw this week was Pittsburgh defense in the red zone against Dallas. Dallas is number 31 out of 32 teams in red zone offense. That's not very good. They're not finishing drives like we said about the Niners the first game. Dallas can't finish drives. Their defense is also allowing touchdowns at a very high rate in the red zone, and I think that's going to be the big difference in this game. Dallas is going to be held to longer field goals or stalling in the red zone, and Detroit, I think, is putting up 30 plus. I think they're going to come into this game with a plan. They're going to move the ball. Now it's Jared Goff on the road. You can get those games where they're moving the ball between the 20s, and he's also not finishing drives. But I think they're going to have some tricks up their sleeve this week. I think they're putting up 28, 35 points, and I think they're going to win this game going away.
Glad we agree. Thais says Dallas wins big. Look at that. Dallas wins big. Lions looking ahead to the Super Bowl favorite Vikings. I don't know. If Dallas lost on national TV to Pittsburgh and they didn't look like a serious team at 1-4, I could see it. But like you said, revenge game, and also Dallas is a marquee team and revenge, like I said. So I think Detroit will pay attention to Dallas. I don't think they look past Dallas. Any concern there?
No, it's Dallas and it's the revenge spot. Yeah, they're playing Minnesota next week. I think they circle Dallas on the count. This is a big game, and they know what happened last year with that Skinner play. They're not overlooking Dallas. No chance.
Yeah, this is also the marquee 425 game. I don't know if this is CBS or Fox, but it's going to be either Tom Brady or Tony Romo making the call. Like that, they're not going to be looking ahead. Campbell undefeated off a bye against the spread. It's good to hear. It's small sample size, but still it's pretty good. So Hen Hunt likes Dallas here as an underdog. Let's see. So it says Lions know they need to win to keep pace with the Vikings. This is very true. Chris says only a delusional Vikings fan will think the Lions get blown out. Okay. I don't know. It's like Dan Campbell. I don't know. This is a stupid rule. I'm going to call
the
Dan
game's
Campbell.
on Fox.
Yeah, it's on Fox. Okay. So we had Tom Brady calling this. All right. So anyway, the Sunday night game is Bengals at the Giants. So you were all over the Giants last week. I liked them too on the show, and this is another game in which I backed off because I thought Malik Neighbors would be such a factor here, his absence, and then turned out to be not the case because the Seahawks were sleepwalking through the game, and Slayton had the game of his life. Daniel Jones had his best game of the year. Tyron Tracy, like I said, Gale Sayers reincarnate. It was an amazing performance for the Giants, and I think because of that win, I don't like them at all here. It's just bad teams don't really have can't really sustain success normally. Now you can argue that the Giants are not a bad team. I could maybe see that argument because their defense has been playing a little bit better lately. Their offensive line has some good aspects to it, and if Neighbors comes back, he's a huge threat, and maybe this Tracy guy is legit. But I think that the Bengals coming off a loss, this is their season. They're 1-4. They have to win this game. You can come back from 1-4. Come back from 1-5 though. It's a tall task. And I like backing great quarterbacks coming off a loss. Joe Burrow off a loss in his career is 16-7 against the spread. So it's just a situation I like. Yeah, so I'm going to be on the Bengals. I suspect, though, we're going to be on opposite sides. Am I right?
You are.
Okay, so why do you like the Giants?
So it's definitely a Cincinnati spot, no question about it. Giants off a good upset win. Cincinnati, the tough overtime loss. But Cincinnati, just because they have to win, and I think they will win. If you ask me who's going to win the game, okay, Cincinnati's going to win the game. But I make the line too. Cincinnati's defense has been terrible. Cincinnati just played an overtime game. Baltimore had 77 plays in the game, so they're a tired team. Yeah, the Giants, they have to fly cross country. They fly back. It's a night game at MetLife. But Cincinnati's defense just hasn't been up to the task this year. They gave up 41 points last week, so 38 if you figure that they don't run the ball in overtime. They gave up a 10-point lead in the fourth quarter twice. I see no reason why the Giants couldn't backdoor this. If they're down by 10, they're down by somewhere in that ballpark, they can get a touchdown. I certainly believe in the Bengals offense. If they're behind, that they'll be able to put together the drive necessary at the end of the game to take that game-winning touchdown or game-tying touchdown or game-winning field goal. But as far as covering and winning by margin, I just don't see it. It's the Giants have been good to me. I don't have the Giants as a good team. I have the Giants as a below-average team, and I have Cincinnati, I think, ranked in the top 10. I have Cincinnati number 8. I have the Giants at number 21. So it's not like I have these two teams really close to one another, but the overall defense tells me that this team shouldn't be laying points on the road. And the Giants have been a feisty team. They've been a live team. They covered the Dallas game because somebody called in to Aubrey to shank a field goal for the first time from 50 yards. The Giants covered last week, winning outright. They dominated last week. Seattle, they were looking ahead, but the Giants killed them. They had a 14-point swing early in that game, came right back down the field, and took advantage. And with Neighbors back, I see no reason why the Giants can't put up 23, 24, 27 points and lose this game by a field goal. So if you told me the line's 2.5, I'm off the game. Maybe I'm on Cincinnati at 3.5 all day. Giants plus 3.5 on the ticket.
Well, we actually have the same distance between the teams. You said you had the Bengals 8 and the Giants 21. I have the Bengals 10 and the Giants 23. So we actually have the same distance. So I agree that the spread is low. My calculated spread for this game was Bengals -1. And you're going to like this because it supports your side. The EPA numbers say the Giants should be 3.5-point favorites. It's kind of bizarre.
Agree with.
The metrics love the Giants for some reason. I don't know why. They have the Giants as what? Let me see. They have the Giants as the 5th best team in the NFL, which I don't know what they're coming up with that from. But the Giants are better than Washington and the Lions, apparently, and the Packers and the Chiefs. The Chiefs are, by the way, the 13th best team in the NFL according to the metrics. So anyway, you can't really always trust the numbers there. But my point is I totally agree that this line is high, but I think it's high for a reason. And it's because the Bengals need to win and they're coming off a loss and it's Joe Burrow off a loss. I think you have to pay a premium for that. And I think I'm willing to do that. It reminds me of the Carolina game, the Cincinnati-Carolina a couple weeks ago, where that line seemed high as well. And the Bengals ended up covering just because it was a desperation game for them. This is their season, I feel like they're going to have some extra juice here, and the Giants coming off the win is a bit of a downgrade for me. So I'm willing to eat the bad line and just think that the spot is just going to make up for it.
Now in that Carolina game you just brought up, that was a 10-point game in the fourth quarter.
Yeah, fair enough.
I think
could have been backdoor. Yeah.
Yeah, they were actually up by that was a 10-point game. Carolina had a field goal to make it a 7-point game. And then Cincy iced it late with a field goal with a minute to go. If the Giants are in that situation, down by 7 or down by 10, I would not be comfortable with -3.5. I would really like my chances on a backdoor situation against what Cincinnati's defense has put up. Now, if Cincinnati's down by 7 or 3 or 4, I also like my chances with Cincinnati's offense being able to come back and do what's necessary. I think if they're passing the ball and they're in a situation where they have to pass the ball, unlike last week where they theoretically didn't have to pass the ball in overtime, I think they'll move the ball at will. But I also think the Giants offense is going to move the ball very well. And I definitely am not looking to lay points with that defense on the road.
Yeah, I mean, you just detail why 3.5 sucks because being Up by 10 is the likely result here for Cincinnati, and yeah, they could get backdoored. That almost happened in that Carolina game. I think Cincinnati was up by 17 at one point, but then it went to 10, and then it went to 7. I was sweating that out. So luckily, Cincinnati covered that one.
Love the over again, by the way.
Yes, I agree. I think the over is the right move. Not in love with either defense. Cincinnati lost Dax Hill, by the way, their best corner, so it's pretty rough for them. And then the Monday night game, we have the Bills at the Jets, who saved the best for last. I'm very curious about your thoughts on this game because I love the Jets here. I love everything about the spot, everything about the injury situation. You have Josh Allen coming off a concussion, who I guess he's going to play. I haven't seen like any indication. Plus, this line says he's going to play. But quarterbacks coming off a concussion, it's like awful track record against the spread. This is something I tracked. It's on one of my spreadsheets. I don't have it up, but awful track record against the spread. They're just not healthy mentally, and it's just a bad idea to rush them back. And then you have the Jets, who I think are undervalued here because everyone saw them lose to Minnesota in London, and like everyone says they're just not a good team. I think Minnesota's a buzzsaw. That loss to Denver was just a horrible spot, coming off a divisional win against the Patriots and then having to travel overseas. The Jets defense is awesome, second in EPA. So if it's Trubisky, that's great. But still, the Jets secondary should shut down anything the Bills are going to try to do downfield. And the Jets defensive weakness is against the run, and the Bills can't run the ball. So except for Josh Allen, who's actually not running as much as he has been in the past. So it feels like the Jets defense should be able to do very well in this game. And Buffalo's defense has just so many injuries. It feels like the Jets should be able to move the ball. The Bills can't stop the run at all. So it feels like a get-right spot for Breece Hall, Braylon Allen looking good. And the cherry on top here is that the Jets fired Robert Saleh. And anytime you have a coaching change, or like I said, quarterbacking change, the players are going to step up. The players are going to be like, oh, this is not my fault. It was his fault. And we see it time and again. Whenever there's a coaching change or a quarterbacking change, like these teams play at the top of their level. And also the Bills have a bad track record playing at the Meadowlands here. The Jets beaten them twice in the past couple of years, and they're 3-1 against the spread against the Bills the last 4. So I love the Jets. I think they win. In fact, wouldn't shock me if they won by like double digits here. I think they take it to the Bills, who it just seems like they have way too many injuries to contend here with a good team. So what are your thoughts here?
I don't have a strong opinion on either side.
Okay.
I originally, my gut before, thinking about what happened during last week's games, when I saw the Jets, before the Jets game, I thought, all right, if the Jets win and Buffalo loses, because I had liked Houston I liked Minnesota and I liked Houston last week. So I think if both teams lose, I kind of like Buffalo because it's Jets now playing a week after the London trip. They're not taking the bye like Minnesota took. So I don't like that. I don't like when teams come back from Minnesota and they don't take the bye. Buffalo, however, is on their 3rd straight road game. So I don't like that either. So that's two kind of negatives for both teams. Obviously, both teams are off back-to-back losses. So I kind of want to favor a bounce back, but a bounce back for who? Clearly, Allen looked like he was concussed. And without Shakir in the lineup, he didn't really have any safety valve to throw the ball to. There was nobody in the slot. Mac Hollins can't catch. Keon Coleman had a big drop. And the play calling continues to befuddle me where he's just chucking the ball deep, especially they get the ball back on the 3-yard line and they call 3 deep balls. It's like, what are we doing here? Run the ball 3 times, run the clock out, and go to overtime. And he does, and they seem to do that a lot when they're behind, especially where Allen just tries to hit that home run ball, whether they're down by 3, 7, whatever it is. He acts like he's down by 28 points and he's got to just get it all back in one shot. I hate the play calling in that situation. And then, of course, today Saleh's fired. But who wasn't fired is Hackett. Hackett's been the offensive play caller. Hackett's a problem too. Mm. They should have released him of his duties and just let Rodgers be the offensive coordinator. I don't know who's calling plays right now or where the offense lies. So I don't really like either side. Also, Rodgers sprained his ankle last week. Of course, he went to the blue tent. They get the ball back. He comes out of the blue tent or doesn't go into the blue tent at all. But he's got a sprained ankle. He's 41-year-old quarterback. Allen's concussed. I don't know what to pick in this game, to be honest with you. So I expect both teams to bounce back, but I don't like either team's rest situation. Either team's quarterback both have injury concerns. Is Sauce Gardner hurt? Is Jets offensive line. What's the story with their offensive line? Shakir. So just too many variables in this game that are just unknown for me to make a play. That I'm a complete pass. Just enjoy the game and see what happens Monday night. But not a game for me to bet. I'm surprised that you have such a strong conviction one way or another, because I just can't find the angles.
Okay, yeah, I already liked the Jets before the firing, and then I was like, oh man, solid fire. I love this game now. Yeah, it's my pick of the month. So
Pick of the month. Okay.
yeah, I hope it's a winner and we don't have another last second loss or something. Sue asking, what happens to this line if Allen cannot play because of concussion protocol? I would think that the Jets would be favored by 3.5 or at least
More.
More. You think? Okay, yeah, okay. I was doing the whatever the Bucs Saints line was, the 2.5 to 3.5.
Yeah, but that's going from Carr to somebody else. This is Josh Allen. So Josh Allen is worth a hefty price.
Okay.
By the way, this line hit 3 yesterday. Or was it yesterday? Or was it? Yeah, it was yesterday. For a couple of hours, this line was sitting at 3. And at 3, I was thinking, oh, the Jets might be a play at 3. And then it went back to 2.5, and I'm thinking, no, maybe I like the Bills at 2.5. And I just kept going back and forth in my head which way I liked, and kind of settled on nothing. And then today, when I saw Saleh was fired, which I actually called at about 10:30 in the morning on Sunday, I texted some of my brothers like Saleh's done after this game, as they were getting blown out in the first half. But then when he got fired, I'm thinking, okay, get that coaching bounce back. And I'm thinking, wait a second, Hackett's still there. Hackett's a problem too. The Jets are another team. They just the play calling is abysmal. The coaching is abysmal in general. And I just don't really – I don't have a strong conviction of this game. I could see either team completely laying an egg and, being confused as to why that is. But I just don't like also the quarterback situation. Both quarterbacks seem to be coming off injuries. So I don't know what I'm getting out of the quarterbacks.
Yeah. Well, I mean, Hackett, obviously, because Rodgers is there. Like, I heard a joke saying that, like, Hackett's, like, his radio is actually disconnected. He's not, like, actually calling plays. It's all Rodgers. So like it doesn't matter, and Hackett's just there because Rodgers is his friend. Kind of like, remember when Brett Favre would always insist on Doug Peterson being the backup because like that was his fishing buddy. maybe it's that sort of situation. Jacob says Allen's terrible at MetLife in this career. Yeah. John says our resident Bills fan. John says Bills offense is horrible right now. They struggled horribly against the Jets defense in the Meadowlands. Saleh just got fired, so you get that 1-game bump. Put all your money on the Jets, all of it. So. Yeah, glad to hear you're on my side, John. So he said Allen never went to concussion protocol. He's playing. Yeah, he never did, but like that was the scuttlebutt that he had a concussion and then he just kind of like brushed it off and just ran back into the game. And like the Bills are in trouble because they didn't follow the procedures. It was like he was going to go in the blue medical tent and then they had a turnover and they got the ball and like Trubisky came in for one play and then even the announcers are like, oh, there's no way Allen's staying out. He's coming back in. I'm like, wait a second. he smacked his head like super hard on the ground. Like, how is he not going into protocol? I don't know. They say he tested him fine. It was fine to guess. I don't know. I mean, of course he's gonna be fine because like they don't want to avoid that fine or suspension or whatever they're gonna have. So
yeah, he's fine because they're playing on national TV. That's why he's fine.
Yeah. I don't trust it at all. Yeah. So. Barron says, does it have to be Eagles and Survivor this week? So I think the 3 main options are you have the Eagles against the Browns, you have the Texans against the Patriots, and then you have the Packers against the Cardinals. You said it before, you would not feel comfortable with the Packers, and I don't think you should take them anyway because they're one of the teams you can use on Thanksgiving weekend if you're in the Circa, if you're one of the few people still alive somehow. You could take the Packers for that Thanksgiving slate. So don't use them there. So I think it's between the Eagles and the Texans. As much as I like the Patriots against the spread, I think it should be the Texans because I was planning it out still on the site. But you can see that it's one of the links on the homepage. If you take the Eagles now, you might be in trouble down the road. Whereas like if you take the Texans now, you get some easier games with the Eagles as well. Like the Eagles played the Panthers, I think, in like week 9 or 10 or whatever it is. So you can take the Eagles then. So you just try to plan it out. I would go with Houston here, but I think like if you're like gun to your head, you like pick one team to win straight up this week, it's definitely the Eagles. What would you do?
When I was planning out my survivors, as I talked to my partners in week 1 and week 2, we actually, some of our entries, we used Houston in week 2. And I remember commenting, if we use Houston now, what are we doing in week 6? And we highlighted, okay, well, we have, who are the possibilities? Baltimore was a possibility at the time. I would certainly not take Baltimore now. Atlanta was a possibility at Carolina, although I try to stay away from road teams. Philly was a possibility. And Cincinnati, I had written down as a possibility, believe it or not. So I would tell you now, knowing what we know today, to me, it's a no-brainer. You got to go the Eagles. You have to go the Eagles because the Eagles are not as good as everybody thinks, and they don't have there's not a lot of home games. There's a home game in week 14 for the Eagles against Carolina. Outside of that home game, there's really no other game where you would play Philly. You're not going to play them against Dallas. Week 18 is too far away against the Giants. And they play Pittsburgh week 15. They play Washington week 11. Washington historically always beats Philly or always plays them tight, even though that game would be in Philly. I think that's a Thursday night game. And they play Jacksonville on a Sunday night. I would not want any part of the Eagles in any of those games other than Carolina week 14. So I would 100% be on the Eagles this week against the Browns. I don't think there's any question about it. All those other teams we talked about, Atlanta, we like Carolina with the points. Houston, we like New England with the points, especially if there's injuries in Houston. And I just don't like those road games are trap games. The Eagles off a bye, off a loss with the Browns playing the way they are. If you have Philly available, that's the way I would go.
Okay. That I was a little off. Not week 9 or week 10. It was week 14. Chris bringing up a good point. Why are you talking about saving a team this year when Survivor's going to end for almost everyone by Halloween? That's true. There was so many upsets. Yeah. So that's a good point. Yeah.
It's unbelievable. So Circa Survivor, 98.5% of the field has been eliminated. That's 14,000 entries knocked out. Wow. Out of 14,200. There's 221. I know people who are buying shares of entries. There's actually a website that sells shares, like brokers shares of Circa Survivor entries, where you can list entries for sale with control of the pick versus without control of the pick with certain percentages. And there's like a whole market for this. I know people who are paying tens of thousands of dollars right now to get back into Circa, because let's be fair, it's a $14 million ticket. You're buying a lottery ticket. I realized I had 5 entries for myself this year, which I had some partners that bought some shares before the season started. I realized, why did I buy 5 entries? I should have bought 10 entries. I probably would have been knocked out of all 10. But if there's such a market to sell shares now, I'll see if I can pull it up so you can share it, because it's actually really, really interesting to see. If I can find it for you.
That's unbelievable. That's wild.
It's very wild.
That's I never do it just because I hate the Thanksgiving and Christmas rules, but now that has me thinking. It's just because sell your shares. That's pretty wild.
But it's not so you're selling shares. It's a way for you to hedge and monetize entries, right? It's called Survivor Sweat. So if you're on Twitter, X, it's Survivor Sweat or survivorsweat.com. So I'm promoting something that I have no idea right now. So if you want to share that link and just show people what this looks like and see how crazy this is, there's real value to owning entries. When I went far in this a couple of years ago, I kept joking around like, oh, my entry is worth 300,000, 200,000. Mm-hmm. You can see people are buying and selling shares. Usually it's about 80 cents on the dollar, somewhere in that ballpark.
Yeah.
So if somebody wants to buy into Survivor with a chance for $14.25 million, which will probably be one winner, probably somewhere around week 12 or week 13, 14, somewhere in that ballpark. I mean, every single week, the top 2 favorites have gone down.
Yeah, it really, it's remarkable.
Whoever runs this site, we just promoted you. Thank you. Welcome.
Yeah. Looks like a 10% stake in this entry is sold for $7,000. That's crazy. I mean, you more than make your money back there.
Yeah, every entry right now is worth $64,500. So it's real equity. So if I had a share, if I had one entry and I wanted to sell you 10%, which is worth $6,500, where are we making a deal? Are we making a deal, at 80 cents on the dollar, or am I getting greedy and asking for more? Am I giving you a right to have input in a pick?
Mm-hmm.
So it's very cool.
Yeah, look at this one, 80% equity for 40 grand. This guy just made 40 grand, well, minus the $1,000 entry fee.
And you can if you click on either of those arrows, you could see which teams were used.
Okay, interesting. So yeah, I mean, some are more valuable than the others. Like if Kansas City's still available, like this person does.
Somebody who sold 90 to 99% just figures, you know what, we're probably going to lose at some point. It's very unlikely we're going to go all the way. I'm going to make my 30 grand now, and I'm happy.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. That's really cool. Yeah, I mean, you sell 1% and you get your money back, or maybe not. Maybe 3% you get your money back plus more.
And Circa, by the way, does very smart. I'm not sure if they just started this year, or if they did this in the past too. I know they didn't do it 3 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
But if you're one of the, I don't know when they start doing this, but if you're one of the later players and you want to go to Vegas and hedge, right? You don't want to have, trust me when I tell you, when you have $6 million on a game, on a football game, that's not a good way to sleep the night before. So What they do is, what Jeff Benson does at Circa and Derek Stevens does, is they'll give you a free credit line, no interest. Let's say you had a share worth $1 million. If there's 14 people left, for argument's sake, and you have an equity stake of $1 million per entry, they'll loan you money as a credit line, interest free, to hedge, knowing that you have obviously the equity share in the contest to give you a chance to maybe bet against your pick, maybe play an underdog and try to get lucky for a middle, or at least just give you a chance to win something. I mean, it's really unbelievable what they do at Circa. I mean, I can't credit them enough. The customer service there, they're so friendly to everybody. It's such a great place. And if anybody hasn't been to Stadium Swim for a day, go to Stadium Swim. There's nothing like it.
I was gonna check it out, but then I saw it was like $40 to get in. I'm like, screw this. I was like, what the hell is that? I just wanted to see what it looked like. Like maybe stay on the side and like just look, and maybe decide if I wanted to go there. But I will have to check it out.
Well, you have entries. You have entries in the contests. You can get yourself a seat. They'll give you a seat. I promise. They'll give you a seat.
Okay, fair enough. I agree with you though. Whenever I go into Circa, like everyone is super friendly at the desk. I always have like these long conversations with the guys behind the desk, or whether it's Circa or Tuscany, it's the same sportsbook, but they're all like super friendly. So I completely agree with that. Chris says I do an annual survivor pool with friends. 49 to 53 people lost in the first 3 weeks. It's been a complete massacre. I was out week 1, so I had the Bengals week 1. So total disaster. Randy asking, what's a couple of good teaser picks this week? So let's look. I think if you like Jacksonville, I think Jacksonville for sure, because you can go from 2.5 to 8.5. So
Jacksonville and the Jets.
Jacksonville and the Jets, yeah. So I was going by the card number. Yeah, Jacksonville and the Jets look like the best to me at the moment. Houston down to 1. I don't like that as much. But you can, if you love Houston, I think Eagles from 8. It looks like the line's 8.5. Eagles from 8.5 down to 2.5. I like that more than Houston.
Yes, I agree with you. Yeah. I like the Eagles more than. That's why we just talked about Survivor. I'm much more confident in Philly winning than Houston.
Yeah. So something you do is you can tease the Jaguars with the Eagles. This is what I'll do. I think I'm going to do this. I'm going to tease the Jaguars with the Eagles, and then I'm going to tease the Eagles with the Jets, or maybe I'll do all three. And the reason I'm doing that is because if you have, so for example, if the Jaguars win the teaser, then you could bet the Eagles at -2.5, you can bet the Eagles at -2.5, and get your money back. Or no, I'm sorry, bet the Browns at 8 plus 8.5 and get you, and like try to middle. That's what I'm trying to say. And then if you go Eagles -2.5 and Jets plus 8.5, you can bet the Bills at -2.5 to try to middle that as well. So that's why I like playing teasers with the two games not being on at the same time. Although you can still live bet, but still it's kind of difficult. Like if the other game, like like goes the other way on you. It's pretty tough, but that's what my plan is going to be. I think I'm going to tease those 3 games in 3 separate teasers. That's what I'm going to do. And Binky, on a scale of 1 to 10, how would you rate Tracy value this week in DFS? I put in a 20% fab bid. So I don't know how that translate on 1 to 10, maybe like an 8. I think he looked really impressive. I drafted him. I did 2 best ball drafts last night. I drafted him in the 11th round. I thought he looked great. And, Singletary is not healthy right now, so I feel like they're going to keep starting him. So, and Cincinnati's run defense is pretty bad. Cam McNeil says Ravens to -0.5 and Atlanta to pick them. I don't like that at all. I don't definitely not the Ravens because you don't get the 7. And then Atlanta pick them. No, you don't get the 7 there either. So I would not tease those 2. All right, so yeah, that's it for this week. Thanks guys for watching, commenting. Really appreciate it. Please hit like, subscribe, comment below, share this video. Visit the link in the description for the merch store. Evan, thanks for joining us once again. It's always fun to do the show with you. Do you have anything to plug or anything to mention or any final thoughts?
No, last week we talked about some win totals going forwards. I thought Washington was the play last week, over 8.5. I don't see anything this week that really changed much. I was looking to fade the Browns last week, but given that I took Washington over, I figured let me wait for that game to end. The markets on Cleveland are way too low. I am looking maybe to think about the Giants at some point, although the line's at 6.5, so probably not enough value there, especially if they lose this week. If the Giants lose this week, I may look to play over Giants win total going forwards. There is a team that I've been eyeing all year. Pittsburgh's schedule, the back half of the schedule, is brutal. After their bye, at Washington, Baltimore, at Cleveland, which looks easier now, at Cincinnati, Cleveland again, at Philly, at Baltimore, Kansas City, and Cincinnati. So taking away the Cleveland games, which are still divisional games, and maybe Jameis Winston, one of them is a Thursday night, still a divisional road game on a short week. That's an 8-game stretch. That is 9 games. That is a very difficult run. So I might look at Pittsburgh under. Let's see what they do this week. Right now they're lined at 8.5. That was exactly where they were lined preseason. I figured at some point we would get better value on that. Where do you bet win totals? FanDuel has very, very good markets for win totals. The other sites are not as good. DraftKings or some of the other, I don't know what bookmaker has as far as season-long win totals. I know FanDuel puts them out usually Sunday night, and they're very slow to adjust. You can really take advantage Sunday night, Monday, with FanDuel season-long win totals. Pittsburgh is a team I'm looking to fade, but I may play it after this week. If they win this week in Vegas and that line jumps to 9.5, I'm taking that under. They play the 2 New York teams, night games the next 2 weeks. And then, like I said, the back half of the schedule is really, really tough. So the only thing I really look throughout the season is some of these win totals. I don't like divisional odds. I don't like will you or will you not make the playoffs. Too many variables with those. I like to play win totals where I think the schedule is coming up favorable or unfavorable, and then play it back. I always look for a hedge opportunity, whether it's half my wager or a quarter. Like I said, I was looking to play Washington. If Washington wins this week, I'm going to wait another week or two and look for that 11.5, 10.5, 11.5, and I'm going to middle 9 to 11 wins. So that's really it. Otherwise, enjoy the games. Good luck. Don't spend all your money on the Jets.
Not all of it. Yeah, it's a good chunk of it. No, I agree. Like FanDuel's great for win totals if you want to check them out. But I always say that shop around, and here on the homepage, the top link here is best sportsbook promos. That takes you to this page here, and you get the best promos possible. You get free bets. It's a great way to cancel out the VIG. So just make sure you do this when you shop around. But like Evan said, FanDuel tends to have the best pricing, and yeah, I foolishly was like, oh, I like what you said about the Redskins last week, taking them over, but I'm going to wait until this game because I think the Browns could give them a tough game. That's very stupid, very dumb thing that I said last week. So let's.
If they get blown out this week, that line may drop back to 8.5.
Yeah. Okay, fair enough. Yeah, that could happen. Hopefully it does. I'd love to get in on that 8.5. But yeah, I remember seeing that Steelers schedule when I did my season preview, and I'm like, oh my god, this looks awful. But yeah, you're right. The Browns games look easier, but Winston will change that calculus there. So we'll see. So hopefully we do get the 9.5, so we can go under, because 9-8 seems like a pretty likely result given Mike Tomlin's track record of finishing above 500 or 500 or above. All right, so guys, once again, thank you so much for watching and commenting. Really appreciate it. We'll be back tomorrow. Not sure if Kenny's gonna be on, because Kenny went somewhere to evade the hurricane, and he said he will tell me about the availability. But either way, we're gonna have a show tomorrow night, and then Thursday Andy's gonna be on. So looking forward to that, and then Saturday gonna do the show with Tom. So full week of videos here as usual. So we'll be back tomorrow. Please hit like, subscribe, comment below, share this video. Visit the link in the description of the merch store. And Evan, love doing the show with you. Thanks for coming on once again. And guys, I'll talk to you later. All right, see you later.